What's up, everyone? This is Elliott, Connie, and for over 15 years, I've helped thousands of counselors support their clients and worked with thousands, tens of thousands of my own clients in finding solutions for their everyday lives. And I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share lessons I've learned in my work and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life as well. And today, I'm going to be talking about enjoying the small things in life, literally things that just make you grateful to be alive. Like many of you, there have been times in my life where I have been guilty of taking life's gloriousness, life's amazingness, and taking them for granted. Like, for example, over the past 10 years, I've had the great opportunity to travel around the world and lecture about psychotherapy. And I used to be so focused that I would fly to a city, stay in a hotel, teach, and then go back to the airport and then fly home. And I remember one time I went to Edinburgh, Scotland, and I went to the hotel. And I was writing a book at the time. So I would write the book, go to sleep, wake up and teach, write the book, go to sleep, wake up and teach. And then I went to the airport and I flew home. And the next week I saw a client. And the client said, "So where you been recently?" Because my clients knew that I traveled because they would try to schedule with me and sometimes I'd be out of town. And I told him I was in Edinburgh, Scotland, and he told me that he and his wife loved to visit there. And he said, "Did you go visit this and that and this and that?" And I was kind of embarrassed to say no. And when the client left, I Googled some of the places that he mentioned and I saw these beautiful castles and hills and these amazing restaurants, all of which I had not visited. So I made myself a promise that I'm going to now just take some time in each of these amazing cities. Most people don't get the opportunity to travel to the places where I travel and do the things that I do. So I'm going to try to take advantage of those opportunities. I'm going to try to celebrate those moments more. And the very next kind of big trip I had was to South Africa. And the woman who invited me to South Africa, she's now a really close friend. Her name is Jackie. She sent me an email and she said, "Would you like to go on a safari?" I had such a habit of going to these cities and not doing anything that my knee-jerk kind of gut reaction was no. But I told her yes. I said I want to go on a safari. And she booked a safari. It was just me. I just went by myself. She booked me on a safari. And it was one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life. I got to see lions in the wild and buffalo in the wild and hippos and giraffes and rhinoceros. I mean, it was an amazing experience. And I now have developed the habit of just saying yes because I now want to collect like small moments. I want to collect small moments of life that make life worth living. Now, that was about 10 years ago. And I'm still someone who I've now been on like 6 safaris and I've done crazy, fun, amazing things. But the goal for me is I want to collect moments that remind me that life is beautiful and life is worth living. And I don't just go to South Africa to do that. I don't just go to Scotland to do that. I want to do that in my everyday life. When this pandemic happened and it removed my ability to travel, people would contact me and say, "Man, this must be really hard on you because your whole life was traveling and now you're stuck at home." But actually what they didn't know is my whole life was moments. And even though I was stuck at home in this pandemic, and even though it completely turned my life upside down as it did everyone else, I still am a passionate collector of moments. And you can do that sitting in your living room. You can do that on a safari. You can do that however it is you live your life. But just going about life looking for moments that remind you that life is inherently beautiful and worth living is the perspective I think we should all take on life. It took me years to realize that. It took me years to wake up and realize that life is really about moments. And these days I do everything I can to create moments that are reminders to me that life is beautiful and worth living. So I want to ask you, if you're listening to this, to just go through this day and try to collect 3 moments every day that are just reminders to you that life is beautiful and worth living. So look, thank you so much again for being here. If you wouldn't mind, please share this with at least one person who needs to hear this message today. It would mean the world to me if you would do that. And don't forget to head on over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, or anywhere else where you listen to your podcast and subscribe. And I will see you tomorrow. What's up, everyone? This is Elliott. For over 15 years, I've helped thousands of counselors support their clients in finding solutions in their everyday lives and worked with thousands of clients of my own. And I want to welcome you back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work and in my life to inspire your best life And today I want to talk to you about gratitude. Gratitude is one of the central facets of my life and probably the biggest component that I've learned that help people have happier, more fulfilled, more wonderful lives. And I'm going to let you know kind of what I mean about gratitude. Growing up, certain parts of my life were really, really challenging. At really, really low points, I had a really close friend, his name was Kyle, who was there for me. How I met Kyle and I played youth sports together in a place called Franklin, Massachusetts. And on the last day of school, my freshman year, I was walking home from school. We had just moved to a new neighborhood, and while we were unpacking the day before, I saw Kyle playing basketball in his driveway with his dad. And I was so excited that there was someone that was my age, someone that I knew, and I was excited to kind of know that someone in this new neighborhood I could play with and play sports with. I was around 12 years old, maybe 13. On the last day of school, which was the next day, I went looking for Kyle, and outside of the middle school, I saw him. So I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, Kyle, I want to walk home." And he said, "Why? Why would you walk home with me?" And I said, "Because we live in the same neighborhood now. I just moved in." And he had a sense of disbelief. Like, "No, you don't. You don't live in the same neighborhood with me." And I could tell he was kind of excited too at the thought or idea that someone he knew and could play with and could play sports with and could connect with was going to live in his neighborhood as well. And I said, "Yeah, no, I do, I promise." And as we walked home, he was still in disbelief. And every, 10, 20 steps or so, he'd say, "Kid, you don't really live in my neighborhood." And I said, "Yes, I do." And when we got to where I lived, he still didn't believe me. And he wanted to come up to our second story apartment to see if it was true. And he came up, and you could see evidence that I lived there. And for the rest of my high school years, we spent every day together. We played sports together. We had deep conversations together. He was there when I was super excited about my first girlfriend, and he was there when I was super devastated about my first girlfriend and I breaking up. And I was there for his grandparents passing away, and I've become connected to his parents. And I'm so grateful for that relationship. This past weekend, Kyle came to Texas, where I live. Kyle's daughter is an accomplished lacrosse player, and they were in Texas playing lacrosse for a lacrosse tournament that her team was invited to. It was amazing. I haven't seen Kyle since the pandemic, and Kyle and I have one of those relationships where regardless how much time we've spent apart or how long it's been since we've talked, we kind of just pick up where we left off. It was wonderful to be able to treat Kyle to being my guest here. And I hosted Kyle while he was here, and I drove him around, and I let him borrow my car, and I took him to get a proper Texas steak at a really wonderful Texas steakhouse. And when Kyle would ask me, he's like, "Man, you don't have to do this," I would let him know I was happy to do it for you. And what was behind that was Kyle has been there for me every step of the way. Kyle's family has been there for me every step of the way. And I consider it a privilege and honor to show Kyle and his family my gratitude. I mean, we often talk about gratitude and the things we're grateful for. And we're coming up on a holiday that celebrates what we're grateful for. But I want to be in the habit of showing how grateful I am to the meaningful people in my life. I want to be in the habit of showing how grateful I am of the things in my life. I want to be in the habit of not taking for granted the people and things in my life that once were hard to find. Because of Kyle, I don't feel lonely. Because of Kyle, I don't feel disconnected. Because of Kyle, I feel like I belong in a place in this world. And because of Kyle, it has given me a great sense of value. So if I can host him and if I can treat him to things, if I can make his stay in Texas a little bit more wonderful, then I'm happy to do it, because I want him to always know that Elliott is grateful for the role I've played in his life. And it makes me wonder, what about you guys? I want you to reflect on the big things in your life that you're grateful for, like your career, your family, your friends, or just having a place to call home. And I just want you to think about how you can show those things that you are grateful to them. Hey, once again, thank you so much for being here and listening to me today. If you wouldn't mind doing me a huge favor, I'd love it if you would share this podcast with at least one person in your life that might need to hear this lesson about gratitude as we go into the Thanksgiving holiday season, or at least here in the US, as we go into the holiday season. Please share it. And don't forget to head on over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, or wherever else you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And I will see you tomorrow. What's up, everyone? This is Elliott Connie, and for over 15 years, I've helped thousands of counselors support their clients and worked with clients of my own in finding solutions for their everyday life issues. And I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share lessons that I've learned in my work and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. And today, I'm going to continue talking to you about the importance of gratitude and the amazing impact it can have on your life. Now, to do this, to give you an example of how important gratitude is, I'm going to tell you about a friend of mine who happens to be one of the most successful business people, one of the most successful professionals that I know. I mean, she is amazing. Her professional name is Dr. Mary Barbera. She is a friend of mine, and she's probably the world authority on treating children who are struggling with autism. But how I got to know her is we both belong to this same business community, and people join this community for the purposes of learning how to grow and build their business. And oftentimes when you join a community like this, you want to achieve that outcome as quickly as you can, and you think, what I need to learn are the tactical things, right? I need to learn how people market their services and how people build their websites and how much people charge for their services. And you want to learn those sorts of things typically. But what I've learned from Dr. Mary Barbera isn't necessarily tactical strategies. What I've seen in her that I think makes her as successful as she is, what I've seen in her that makes her the leader that she is the level of gratitude that exists in Mary's life. This is a woman who could stand on the mountaintop and proclaim her success boldly and proudly and kind of take credit for it. But every time she has a massive success, she always gives thanks to someone that helped her achieve it. And she has had some profound success. Like if you go look her up on YouTube, you will see that she has like 100,000 followers on her YouTube channel. And you can see she's got a video on her YouTube channel that has gotten 1 million views. And if you know her personally and you're kind of involved in her business world, you would know that she runs a 7-figure business. And every single time she talks about these things, she always talks about the people that helped her achieve it. She will say, here's this achievement that I've gotten, and I'm so thankful to so-and-so because they gave me this idea 3 years ago and I acted upon it. Or every time she says, I hit this milestone in my business and I just want to give thanks to this person or this community because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here. And I watch this and I think not only are the tactical strategies important if you're trying to achieve something, but your mindset is important. One of the reasons that Mary is so successful is because she gives thanks. One of the reasons that Mary is so successful is because of the way she lives her life, because of the stance she takes. It's really important that we understand that if we want to be happy, if we want to achieve things, we have to be able to give honor and praise and glory to things that live outside of ourselves. It just feels good. You know, I have another friend, his name Chris Iveson, and Chris will often say, treat life as it's a big fan and understand that everything I throw at the fan will spray back and hit me. Don't throw blank at the fan, right? Don't throw crap at the fan. And when I watch Mary, it's such an honor and privilege to be her friend because I get to watch her throw goodness out into the world. And she walks around smiling and she genuinely, truly wants to help people. She genuinely and truly wants to make a difference in people's lives. She donates her time, effort, and energy while she's running this huge brand and while she's having this enormous success, but she wants to make sure she's pulling other people up towards the success with her. And think about what that does to your life if every time you're having success, you put forth the effort to make sure you're bringing other people along with you. That's the type of energy I want you giving out into the world. Be a person that pulls people towards happiness. We all know how horrible it is when we're pulled down. We all know how horrible it is when we've got somebody sucking the energy out of us. Be someone that can bring people up with you. Be a light to other people's joy. And take the lesson from my friend Mary. It's really important that we take these things on and put action into our lives. So I want you to think about someone that you know who's just really good at showing gratitude. And what can you learn from observing them. I've learned how to be a better leader. I've learned how to be a better business person because of my friendship with Mary. What have you learned from someone in your life? Hey, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind doing me a huge, massive favor, I would love it if you would share this podcast with at least one person that needs to hear this lesson, at least one person that you think would benefit from what I've shared today. And don't forget to head on over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe so you get notified when each episode drops, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow. What's up, everyone? This is Elliott, and for over 15 years, I've helped thousands of counselors support their clients and worked with thousands of clients of my own to find solutions in their everyday lives. And I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share lessons I've learned in my work and in my life to help inspire you to live your very best life. And today, I want to talk to you about gratitude. Gratitude is a really important lesson, and it can impact your life in extremely profound ways. Since today is Thanksgiving here in America, which is a day where we're supposed to give thanks and spend time with family and enjoy food and love and warmth, I want to tell you about a story of how I saw love take over young people's lives and impact them immediately. I want to talk to you about how gratitude was used to literally change some kids' lives and the direction of their life. So early in my career, my very first job in helping professions was as a caseworker at a halfway house, and a halfway house for young people. Here in Texas, if you go to youth prison, which they call Texas Youth Commission, and when you're released, if your crime prevents you from going home, like if you committed the crime in the home, or somehow maybe you have like younger siblings in the home and the state of Texas prevents you from going home, you come and live in a halfway house. And that's where I worked. Now, these kids had committed awful crimes, sometimes violent, involving weapons, robberies, assaults. I mean, these kids had done some really difficult things. And in order to do that, you have to have a level of selfishness that prevents you from doing good, glorious, wonderful things out in the world. So around the holiday season, during the first year I worked at this organization, I actually only worked there for 1 year, we were trying to think of ways that we could have the kids do things that would trigger their compassion, their kindness, their warmth. And we came up with the idea of having the kids make meals and then drive around Dallas giving the meals to homeless people. And we got some blankets, some organization donated blankets. And since it was cold, we decided to give food and blankets to the homeless people in the Dallas area. So we made about 100 meals, and we put them in brown paper bags, and we had, 20, 25 blankets, whatever it was, and we literally packed these kids in a van and started driving around downtown Dallas. And these kids were complaining, they were upset, I don't want to do this is lame, this is corny. And I will never forget the very first person we encountered. We drove the van around downtown Dallas. We see some people that look like they're really struggling, potentially don't have any place to go, and we pull over, and I say, okay, who wants to offer this person a meal and maybe a blanket? And the first kid begrudgingly is like, I'll do it, I just want to get it out of the way. I get out of the van with him, and we approach this man and this kid. I keep saying kid, but think of 16, 17, 18-year-old, and I'm at the time about 23. And we walk up to this man, and the kid says to the man, like, would you like a meal? And the man says yes, and he offers him a meal. And he says, you look cold, can I give you a blanket? And the man says, oh, I'd love a blanket. And the young man offers the man a blanket. And then the man says, thank you. Can I pray for you? And the kid I was with looked at him and he said, I don't have anything to offer you as a way of thanks, but I'd really like it if you'd allow me to pray for you. So the kid says yes, and the man prays for him. I don't remember what he said, but I remember the look on the eyes of the kid I was with. It just touched him. We walk back to the van, and he's no longer complaining. He's no longer getting negative. He's actually quiet. We drive up to the next place, and the next place, and the next place. And in that night, we probably encountered, 100 people. Gave them meals, and when we had them, we gave them blankets. By the end of the night, the kids were excited to jump out of the van and offer food and blankets to these people. You could hear the conversation in the van changing to how wonderful it was to experience that warmth and to offer kindness to people. And I think back and I remember, like, some of these kids, that was probably the first time they ever felt that. And then when they're doing something kind for someone, to have someone say something like, can I pray for you, which happened multiple times throughout that night, probably the first time someone genuinely talked to these kids in that way. And it impacted them. I know it impacted them because we worked with those kids for several weeks and they were never the same after that night. So when I think of Thanksgiving, that's probably my favorite Thanksgiving Day moment. That's probably the moment for me that was the most remarkable and teaches me what we can learn from gratefulness. Because for the first time, these kids were grateful. And none of these kids, man, had a great life. They came from really, really difficult backgrounds and environments. But they had a little bit of gratefulness on that night that they could do something kind for someone else. And I think that's a wonderful lesson, the power of doing something kind for someone else. And that's always my favorite memory when I think about Thanksgiving. So hey, thank you for listening on this day, on this wonderful Thanksgiving Day. If you wouldn't mind, please do me a super huge favor. I'd love it if you'd share this podcast with at least one person that you think would benefit from hearing this message about gratefulness, about Thanksgiving. And don't forget to head on over to Apple Podcasts where you can subscribe. In fact, you can subscribe anywhere where you listen to podcasts, and I will see you tomorrow. What's up, everyone? This is Elliott, Connie, and for over 15 years, I've helped thousands of counselors support their clients, and I've worked with tens of thousands of clients of my own to find solutions in their everyday lives for their everyday problems. And I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share lessons I've learned in my work and in my life to help inspire you to live your very best life. And today, we're going to continue our journey and talk about gratitude. It's funny, when I look at the world in which we live in, I mean, there's no way to describe it as any other way other than tumultuous. I mean, the past few years have been crazy. And I look around and I see violent and racially charged problems going on in the world, terrorist acts, trials going on where the whole country is sitting on edge waiting for verdicts. You know, I log into Facebook and I see one negative news story after another, and it's really, really hard to walk through this life with a positive outlook. But I'm going to tell you a really quick story because I think this is our opportunity to decide what kind of life we want to live in and decide what kind of life we want to have. I worked with a group once. I was invited to a grief group at a local church, and I met probably the most incredible man I've ever met in my life, the most incredible couple I ever met in my life. Now, in order to be in this group, you had to have suffered a loss in your immediate family. And when I showed up to the group, there were about 12 families there. They went around the room and they told their story of their loss. And there was this one couple who they had lost their son. Their son was going to go out and hang out with friends. He was in kind of 16, 17-year-old teenage years. And he was going to go out and hang out with his friends. And on his way out the door, his father asked him if he had returned the Blockbuster video. And the son said no. And the dad sent him back to go get the Blockbuster video so he and his friends could drop it off. And he said his friends pulled off. They drove away, and about a minute later, he heard what he described as an explosion. And he said, I knew immediately I had lost my son. What had happened was an 18-wheeler was driving on the wrong side of the road, hit the car that his son was in head on, and everybody in the car had passed away, including his son. And he said the next day, people from the church were coming by the house and they were dropping off food and gifts and coming by with prayers and well wishes. And somebody brought a pamphlet, a how to get through grief pamphlet. And he said he and his wife had fallen asleep on the couch, and he woke up and his wife was asleep across his lap. He said that he was going to watch television, but he was afraid if he reached for the remote control, he would wake his wife. And the only thing within his reach was his pamphlet. And he starts reading this pamphlet, and he comes across a statistic that says 93% of couples who experience the loss of a child get a divorce within the first year. And he said he read that, and he was so impacted by that stat, he woke his wife up, even though he originally didn't want to wake her up. He woke his wife up and he said, get up, get up, get up. And he said to his wife, I just read the best news. He said, some couples get through this. And he said, let's promise ourselves that we will get through this. And I looked at that man and I just thought, you have to have a very special mind to read a stat like that and see the good news in it. You have to be a very special person to hear that 7% of people survive this and hear that as good news. And I remember meeting that man, and when the group was over, I shook his hand and I just thought, I want to be him. I want to be someone who can find the nuggets of gold amongst the noise and amongst the muck and amongst the difficulty. I want to be someone who can find evidence of good when it's the most difficult to find. I think that's how gratitude works. Like, we live in such an entitled world that, like, if I lose my cell phone, it's like the world is over, or whatever, life is not going perfect. It's like everything is a problem. But we have to train our brain to notice the smallest evidence of goodness. And I think that's what gratitude is about, because you can't give thanks, you can't show thanks unless you notice things to be thankful for. And we have to program our brains to notice things to be thankful for. And that's the kind of society that I want to live in. I think that is how you make society a better place. I think that is how you make society what it could be. And my call to action for you is, as you go through life, just look for even the smallest things to give thanks for and be grateful for and be thankful for, because I think that is in fact how you change the world. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. And if you wouldn't mind, please do me the biggest favor ever and share this video with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message. I would love, love, love for you to help me get the message out there. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. And I will see you on Monday.